Welcome back to Be Rich. Today I want to talk about a man who was and will always remain my greatest idol in finance. I read his book when I was 23. I couldn't make head or tail of it. I am not talking about Warren Buffett. I am talking about the old Hungarian Jew, a man who was in Nazi Germany right through the occupation. He had to struggle and escape from communist Hungary. He barely managed to get into Vienna and got himself into London and then later went to United States. In his difficult years, he studied in the London School of Economics. He was greatly influenced by Karl Popper. In all this while, he struggled through poverty and was dependent on Jewish charity for sustenance. At one time, he had to fake an injury to get some money from the Jewish board in London to survive. Though he studied philosophy and economics in the London School of Economics, he had to sell handbags for a living. Till he finally stumbled upon the world of finance when he was about 27. And ever since then, there was no looking back. He moved to the United States, turned a speculator, and became one of the world's greatest speculators of all time. I'm talking about George Soros. The George Soros we know today is vilified as an evil influence across countries. But George Soros is a man who worked very hard for the entire world to be an open society and failed. He invested billions of his dollars in what was then communist Eastern Bloc of Europe to free them and bring an open society in places like Czechoslovakia, his native Hungary, and Poland. The basic philosophy of George Soros is that markets are never at equilibrium. They tend towards equilibrium, but at times can be at extreme positions away from the equilibrium. So George Soros was not your normal stock picker who would buy a stock low and then sell it high. George was a consummate risk taker who based his fund in one of the many tax havens away from America. Initially, he worked with Jim Rogers, now known as a commodity expert. They made money in buying defense stocks. His elder brother, Paul Soros, known as the Invisible Soros, made a great fortune as an engineer who built ports and started to invest with George. And that was the basis of their great fortune. George was the first man to use the distinction that Hayek and Popper saw of the critical difference between social science and natural science. In whatever experiment you do in natural science, whether you do it or I do it, the result is same. When you test for nitrate, brown ring is nitrate for you and nitrate for me. Blue is copper sulfate for you and for me. The laws of motion work for you, it worked for me. But what Popper and Hayek demonstrated, social sciences was different. Each person got a different result. That is because I don't have to be a market participant. My views on the market will influence the outcome of what is happening in the market, though I may not participate. It took me a long time to wrap my head around. But today, in YouTube, with more than 60,000 people following me, my views are also influencing the market in an insignificant way. So what a guru says affects the market. If Warren is buying a stock in big numbers, it will immediately move up the market. They call it the halo effect in behavioral economics. So Soros was the first to realize that there are distortions in the market, and markets are always flawed, and there is nothing called as a perfect market. Whereas humans strive for perfection, he realized that every human construct is imperfect. He created the theory of reflexivity, where two events affect each other to provide an outsized result. Soros became famous for shorting the pound and making $1 billion in England. There was, according to the Maastricht Treaty, what was known as the ERM, where there was a standard rate for the for the German mark, and the other currencies would move in a band around that. And it was the responsibility of the central banker to keep the currencies by buying or selling the German mark or manipulating interest rates. But often what they did not realize, that the economic needs of Germany would be opposite to the economic needs of England or any other country. So in this mechanism, when Germany had different economic needs and England had different economic needs, that band would not hold. Under Helmut Kohl, Germany unified. What the German central bank did as a condition for unification, the worthless East German mark was converted into the German mark by giving one mark for each Eastern German mark, which was a highly overvalued, very highly generous settlement. The East German mark was a worthless piece of paper, while the West German mark was a very strong currency. In this unified Germany, and with lot of construction activity happening in eastern portions of Germany, the economy of the Germany boomed, and there was lot of inflation with lot of excess Western and German marks. The Deutsche Bank, mandated by the constitution to keep inflation in tight control, kept increasing interest rates. At this point of time, England was going through its own contractions and was running a weak economy with very low inflation. It needed a stimulus, it needed lower interest rates. So the British pound was at the lower end of the band, and it was under pressure to keep its currency, the pound sterling, inside the band. So they constantly did two things. They kept increasing rates, and they kept buying the German mark. Soros realized this was impossible solution, for the economic reality of Germany and England were two different things, and England had to give in at some time. He kept shorting, and as the British kept raising rates, he knew the end was near and shorted even more. As a result of his action and other speculative action, the English pound never really rallied in spite of interest rates being raised several times a day. Finally, the English Chancellor Norman Lemon threw in the towel and pulled the pound sterling away from the ERM. That was the precursor till today's decision of Britain leaving the European Union, what is known as the Brexit. George Soros calculated that human actions were imperfect, and two economies have two different needs. So fiscal and monetary policy have to be in sync. You cannot have two fiscal policies and one monetary policy, and backed where his feelings were and his gut feel was there, and he kept pounding the British pound. He made $1 billion on a single day. That was, at that time, the greatest coup. The ghost of Richard Cantillon had come back, and another Cantillon had arrived. Only that this Cantillon did not vanish overnight and remained forever. Well before that, in 1987, just around the great crash of 87, he released his book, The Alchemy of Finance. I will review this book another day, but I thought that I will introduce you to George Soros, the great Hungarian who had spent his money trying to change the world. Thank you for watching Be Rich. If you like this video, please subscribe to it. Turn on the bell notification and tell your friends and relatives about. Once again, thank you for watching Be Rich.